motorhomediaries.com.
Good to see everybody. I'm in Olympia, Washington with Amber Gunn from the Evergreen Freedom Foundation. Amber, thanks for being with Motorhome Diaries.
Thanks.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to these ideas of liberty?
Yeah, actually grew up on an apple farm here in Eastern Washington, and I always say farmers are the first entrepreneurs, and there's now not so much. They take a lot of subsidies, but my dad was a fruit farmer, and so we don't get federal subsidies like a lot of the wheat and soy farmers do. But, you know, kind of grew up in the typical Republican family and got exposed to the ideas of liberty. You know, myself, for the most part, just started reading when I got into college and self-educated for the most part. And then I got an internship with the Charles Koch Foundation, and that was where I was first exposed to the ideas of Hayek and Friedman, a lot of these people that I had never really heard of, because of course you're not going to hear them discussed in a typical public school, which is where I went. The internship that I had with Koch Foundation placed me at the Evergreen Freedom Foundation, and so after I had my internship here, they hired me on.
So let's, can you tell us a little bit about EFF? What's the mission? What is the goals here in the state of Washington?
Yeah, well, our mission is to advance individual liberty, free enterprise, and limited accountable government. And those were actually the words that first struck me about EFF, where I thought that was such a worthy mission. And so we're pretty much just focused on Washington State, but we do network with a lot of other think tanks around the nation. And I work in our Economic Policy Center, so we focus on Washington State budget, taxes, regulations as well, a lot of the really ugly things, I guess. I mean, we do all kinds of things. We can do research, we do analysis, we do writing, we also have a whole activist-oriented arm that we send out alerts to our members when things are happening on the Hill, or if there's new policy going through and we need people to know about it. And you know, whether it's a bad policy and we need to stop it, or whether it's a good policy and we need to reward the people who are trying to go forward with reforms. So and we do education policy as well. We do labor policy. We take on a lot of the unions. Washington is a major union state. We are not a right-to-work state, so what that basically means is that your employment can be conditioned upon whether or not you join a union. And we just think this is absolutely antithetical to choice in a free society, freedom of association, and it's one thing that we are working to change in this state, is we think people, wherever they're working, should be able to decide if they want to be in a union. That's great. If they don't, then they shouldn't be forced to pay money to support a union that a lot of times will push policies and politics that they don't believe in.
So can you touch on some things that EFF has done to advance, say, economic freedom in Washington?
So one of the things that we do is we look at what's happening with state pension systems, for example. This is a big deal in our state because we have so many state employees, and because the unions control a lot of the policies that happen on the state level. We've had really, really generous pension benefits for public employees. These benefits are, because of the nature of the promises, they won't be paid until the next generation, essentially. And so what we do is we expose things like the unfunded liability for pensions, and essentially what that means is it can be, in Washington right now it's over $6 billion, and that means that they have promised more than they have saved. So we can offer practical policy alternatives and show, you know, this is the way that we can move away from higher taxes and avoid a crisis down the road, for example.
Can we go back, and you touched on the activist arm that you guys have, which I think is pretty awesome, and it's seems to be fairly unique among the state-based think tanks. So can you touch on that and some successes you guys have had?
Yeah, sure. Our activist network, it's called our Citizen Action Network, and it's actually only about 1.5 years old, so it kind of is a bold experiment for us. Basically what we do is teach them first principles of freedom. So we have one of our guys will come in and teach the class, and kind of lay out either first principles of economic freedom or first principles of freedom. We give them a whole reading list. Bastiat's the law, for example. And then we give them concrete things that they can do in their communities. Like the whole point of that is to reach out and become like the leaders in their community, give them the tools, equip them to be able to go out and make a difference, essentially. During session is when our Citizen Action Network is most active. We will send out alerts to our membership, letting them know when a really bad bill is going through, for example, or when a really good bill is going through.
Let me go back. You said one of the few things that's in the mission statement for EFF is limited government. So when would, say you guys are successful in all these campaigns you guys are waging and pushing back big government, when would you guys say, all right, government's limited enough, we're going to close our doors and do something else now?
Never. We'll never get to the point where it's limited enough. I mean, we know that the nature of government is to expand. Up till now, a big part of the liberty movement by people on the front lines has been to try to stop the advance. And I think that it is a really hard thing to try to not only stop and slow it down, but try to push it the other direction. I think it's just an eternal battle, and you'll never reach a point where government is small enough, in my opinion.
Right on. Well, on that note, I think we can part ways in agreement. So,
yeah,
Amber,
thanks.
thank you so much for your time. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.